Hi everyone and welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle. We're back at it again with a Berkshire Hathaway letter to shareholder, but this is the 1986. And without further ado, let's jump right into reading this puppy. To the shareholders of Berkshire Hathaway Inc., our gain in net worth during 1986 was $492.5 million, or 26.1%. Over the last 22 years, that is, since present management took over, our per share book value has grown from 19.46 to $2,073.06, or 23.3 compounded annually. Both the numerator and denominator are important in the per share book value calculation. During the 22-year prior, our corporate net worth has increased 10,600%, while shares outstanding have increased less than 1%. The past reports I have noted that book value is at most companies differs widely from intrinsic business value, the number that really counts for owners. In our case, however, book value has served for more than a decade as a reasonable, if somewhat conservative, proxy for business value. That is, our business value has moderately exceeded our book value, with the ratio between the two remaining fairly steady. The good news is that in 1986, our percentage gain in business value probably exceeded the book value gain. I say probably because business value is a soft number. In our own case, two equally informed observers might make judgments more than 10% apart. A large measure of our improvement in business value relative to book value reflects the outstanding performance of the key managers at our major operating businesses. These managers, the Blunkins, Mike Goldberg, the Heldens, Chuck Huggins, Stan Lipsey, and Ralph Ski, have over the years improved the earnings of their businesses dramatically while, except in the case of insurance, utilizing little additional capital. This accomplishment builds economic value, or goodwill. That does not show up in the net worth figure on our balance sheet, nor in our per share book value in 1986. This unrecorded gain was substantial. So much for the good news. The bad news is that my performance did not match that of our managers. While they were doing a superb job in running our businesses, I was unable to skillfully deploy much of the capital they generated. Charlie Munger, our vice chairman, and I really have only two jobs. One is to attract and keep outstanding managers to run our various operations. This hasn't been all that difficult. Usually the managers come with the companies we bought, having demonstrated their talents throughout careers that spanned a wide variety of business circumstances. They are managerial stars long before they knew us, and our main contribution has been to knock it in their way. This approach seems elementary. If my job were to manage a golf team, and if Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer were willing to play for me, neither would get a lot of directive from me about how to swing. Some of our key managers are independently wealthy. We hope they all become so, but that poses no threat to their continued interest. They work because they love what they do and relish the thrill of outstanding performance. They unfailingly think like other owners. The highest compliment we can pay a manager, and find all aspects of their business absorbing. Our prototype for occupational fervor is the Catholic tailor who uses his small savings of many years to finance a pilgrimage to the Vatican. When he returned, his parish held a special meeting to get his first-hand account of the Pope. Quote, "Tell us," end quote, said the eager faithful. Quote, "Just what sort of fellow is he?" End quote. Our hero wasted no words. Quote, "He's a 44 medium." End quote. He's a tailor. Charlie and I know that the right players will make almost any team manager look good. We subscribe to the philosophy of Ogilvy and Mather's founding genius, David Ogilvy, quote, "If each of us hires people who are smaller than we are, we shall become a company of dwarves. But if each of us hires people who are bigger than we are, we shall become a company of giants," end quote. A byproduct of our managerial style is the ability it gives us to easily expand Berkshire's activities. We've read management treaties that specify exactly how many people should report to any one executive, but they make little sense to us. When you have able managers of high character running businesses about which they are passionate, you can have a dozen or more reporting to you and still have time for an afternoon nap. Conversely, if you have even one person reporting to you who is deceitful, inept, or uninterested, you will find yourself with more than you can handle. Charlie and I could work with double the number of managers we now have, so long as they had the rare qualities of the present ones. We intend to continue our practice of working only with people whom we like and admire. This policy not only maximizes our chances for good results, it also ensures us an extraordinarily good time. On the other hand, working with people who cause your stomach to churn seems much like marrying for money. Probably a bad idea under any circumstance, but absolutely madness if you are already rich. The second job Charlie and I must handle is the allocation of capital, which at Berkshire is considerably more important challenge than at most companies. 3 factors make that so. We earn more money than average, we retain all that we earn, and we are fortunate to have operations that, for the most part, require little incremental capital to remain competitive and to grow. Obviously, the future results of a business earning 23% annually and retaining it all are far more effective by today's capital allocations that are the results of the business earning 10% and distributing half of that to shareholders. If our retained earnings and those of our major investees, Geico and Capital Cities ABC Inc., are employed at an unproductive manner, the economics of Berkshire will deteriorate very quickly. In a company adding only, say, 5% to net worth annually, capital allocation decisions, though still important, will change the company's economics far more slowly. Capital allocation at Berkshire was tough work in 1986. We did make one business acquisition, the Fritchemere Bros Company, which we will discuss in a later section. Fritchemere is a company that, with excellent economics, run by exactly the kind of people with whom we enjoy being associated, but it is relatively small, utilizing only about 2% of Berkshire's net worth. Meanwhile, we had no ideas in the marketability equities field, an area in which once, only a few years ago, we could readily employ large sums in outstanding businesses at very reasonable prices. So, our main capital allocation moves in 1986 were to pay off debt and stockpile funds. Neither is a fate worse than death, but they do not inspire us to do handsprings either. If Charlie and I were to draw blanks for a few years in our capital allocation endeavors, Berkshire rate of growth would slow significantly. We will continue to look for operating businesses that meet our tests and, with luck, will acquire such a business every couple of years. But an acquisition will have to be large if it is to help our performance materially. Under current stock market conditions, we have little hope of finding equities to buy for our insurance companies. Markets will change significantly, you can be sure of that, and someday we will again get our turn at bat. However, we haven't the faintest idea when that might happen. It can't be said too often, although I'm sure you feel I've tried, that even under favorable conditions, our returns are certain to drop substantially because of our enlarged size. We have told you that we hope to average a return of 15% on equity, and we maintain that hope, despite some negative tax law changes described in a later section of this report. If we are to achieve this rate of return, our net worth must increase $7.2 billion in the next 10 years. A gain that magnitude will be possible only if, before too long, we come up with a few very big and good ideas. Charlie and I can't promise results, but we do promise you that we will keep our efforts focused on our goals. Sources of reported earnings. The table on the next page shows the major sources of Berkshire's reported earnings. This table differs in several ways from the one present last year. We have added 4 new lines of business because of the Scott Feitzer and Fetchmere acquisition. In the case of Scott Feitzer, the 2 major units acquired were World Bank and Kirby, and each is present separately. 14 other businesses of Scott Features are aggregated in Scott Feitzer Diversified Manufacturing, SF Financial Group, a credit company holding both World Book and Kirby receivables, and it is included in quote-unquote others. This year, because Berkshire is so much larger, we also have eliminated separate reportings for several of our smaller businesses. In the table, amortization of goodwill is not charged against the specific businesses, but for reasons outlined in the appendix to my letter in the 1983 annual report, is aggregated as a separate item. A compendium of earlier letters, including the goodwill discussion, is available upon request. Both the Scott Feitzer and Fetchmere acquisitions created accounting goodwill, which is why the amortization charge for goodwill increased in 1986. Additionally, the Scott Feitzer acquisition required the other major purchase price accounting adjustments, as prescribed by General Accepted Accounting Principles, GAAP. The GAAP figures, of course, are the ones used in our consolidated financial statements, but, in our view, the GAAP figures are not necessarily the most useful ones for investors or managers. Therefore, the figures shown for specific operating units are and earnings before purchase price adjustments are taken into account. In effect, these are the earnings that would have been reported by the business if we had not purchased them. A discussion of our reasons for preferring this form of presentation is in the appendix to this letter. The appendix will never substitute for a steamy novel and definitely is not requiring reading. However, I know that among our 6,000 shareholders there are those who are thrilled by my essays on accounting, and I hope that both of you enjoy the appendix. In the business segment, data on page 41, 43, and in the management discussion section of pages 45 to 49, you will find much additional information about our business. I urge you to read those sections, as well as Charlie Munger's letter to Wesco shareholders describing the various businesses of that subsidiary, which starts on page 50. And then, just like before, it says the omitted pre-tax earnings, 86.85. Berkshire shares after taxes, 86.85, has all of the companies on the left with all of the information on the right for each year before and after taxes, but we are just going to go over total earnings, all entities. First, 86 pre-tax, $412,099. 85 pre-tax, $613,356. 86 after tax, $282,361, and 85 after tax, $435,815. As you can see, operating earnings substantially improved during 1986. Some of the improvement came from insurance operations, whose results I will discuss in a later section. Fetchmere also will be discussed separately. Our other major business performed as follows. Operating results in the Buffalo News continue to reflect a truly superb managerial job by Stan Lipsey. For the 3rd year in a row, many hours worked fell significantly and other costs were closely controlled. Consequently, our operating margins improved materially in 1986, even though our advertising rate increases were well below those of most major newspapers. Our cost control efforts have in no way reduced our commitment to news. We continue to deliver a 50% quote-unquote news hole, the portion of the total space in the paper devoted to news. A higher percentage, we believe, than exists at any dominant newspaper in the country of our size or larger. The average news hole at papers comparable to the news is about 40%. The difference between 40% and 50% is more important than it might first seem. A paper with 30 pages of ads and a 40% news hole delivers 20 pages of news a day, whereas the paper matches 30 pages of ads with 30 pages of news, therefore given ad pages equal in number and end up delivering our readers no less than 50% more news. We believe this heavily commitment to news is one of the reasons the Buffalo News has the highest weekday penetration rate. The percentage of households in the paper's primary market area purchases it each day, among any of the top 50 papers in the country. The Sunday penetration, where we are also number one, is even more impressive. 10 years ago, the only Sunday paper serving Buffalo, the Courier Express, had circulation of 271,000 and a penetration ratio of about 63%. The Courier Express had served the area for many decades, and its penetration ratio, which was similar to those existing in many metropolitan markets, was thought to be a quote-unquote natural one, accurately reflecting the local citizens' area's appetite for a Sunday product. Our Sunday paper was started in late 1977. It now has a penetration ratio of 83% and sells about 100,000 copies more each Sunday than it did the Courier Express 10 years ago, even though population in our market area has declined during the decade. In recent history, no other city that has long had a local Sunday paper has experienced a penetration gain anywhere close to Buffalo's. Despite our exceptional market acceptance, our operating margins almost certainly have peaked. A major newsprint price increase took effect on the end of 1986, and our advertising rate increased in 1987. Will again be moderate compared to those of the industry. However, even if margins should materially shrink, we would not reduce our news hole ratio. As I write this, it has been exactly 10 years since we purchased the news. The financial reward it has brought us have far exceeded our expectations, and so, too, have the non-financial rewards. Our respect for the news, high when we bought it, has grown consistently ever since the purchase, as has our respect and admiration for Murray Light, the editor who turns out the products that receives such extraordinary community acceptance. The effort of Murray and Stan, which were crucial in the news during the dark days of financial reversals and litigation, have not in the least been lessened by prosperity. Charlie and I are grateful to them. The amazing Blumpkins continue to perform business miracles at Nebraska Furniture Mart. Competitors come and go, mostly go, but Mrs. B and her progeny roll on. In 1986, net sales increased 10.2% to $132 million. 10 years ago, sales were $44 million, and even then, NFM appeared to be doing just about all of the business available in the greater Omaha area. Given NFM's remarkable dominance, Omaha's slow growth in population, and the modest inflation rates that have applied to the goods NFM sells, how can this operation continue to rack up such large sales gains? The only logical explanation is that the marketing territory of NFM's one and only store continues to widen because of its ever-growing reputation for rock-bottom everyday prices and the broadest of selections. In preparation for further gains, NFM is expanding in the capacity of its warehouse, located a few hundred yards from the store, by about 1/3. Mrs. B, chairman of Nebraska Furniture Mart, continues at age 93 to outsell and out-hustle any manager I've ever seen. She's at the store 7 days a week from opening to close, competing with her representatives, a triumph of courage over judgment. It's easy to overlook what I consider to be a critical lesson of the Mrs. B saga. At 93, Omaha-based board chairmen have yet to reach their peak. Please file this fact away to consult before you mark your ballot at the 2024 annual meeting of Berkshire. At See's, sales trends improved somewhat from those of recent years. Total pounds sold rose about 2%. For your chocoholics who like to fantasize, one statistic, we sell over 12,000 tons annually. Same-store sales, measured in pounds, were virtually unchanged. In the previous 6 years, same-store poundage fell, and we gained or maintained poundage volume only by adding stores. But a particularly strong Christmas season in 1986 stemmed the decline. By stabilizing same-store volume and making a major effort to control costs, See's was able to maintain its excellent profit margins in 1986, though it put through only minimum price increases. We have Chuck Huggins, our long-term manager at See's, to thank for this significant achievement. See's has a one-of-a-kind product, quote-unquote, personality, produced by a combination of its candy's delicious taste and moderate price, the company's total control of the distribution process, and the exceptional service provided by store employees. Chuck rightfully measured his success by the satisfaction of our customers, and his attitude permeates the originations. Few major retailing companies have been able to sustain such a customer-oriented spirit, and we owe Chuck a great deal of keeping it alive and well at See's. See's profit should stay at about the present level. We will continue to increase prices very modestly, merely watching prospective cost increase. World Book is the largest of 17 Scott featured operations that joined Berkshire at the beginning of 1986. Last year, I reported to you enthusiastically about the business of Scott Feitzer and about Ralph Ski, its manager. A year's experience had added to my enthusiasm for both. Ralph is a superior businessman and a straight shooter. He also brings exceptional versatility and energy to the job. Despite the wide array of business that he manages, he is on top of the operations, opportunities, and problems of each. And, like our other managers, Ralph is a real pleasure to work with. Our good fortune continues. World Book's unit volume increased for the fourth consecutive year, with encyclopedia sales up 7% over 1985 and 45% over 1982. Childcraft's unit sales also grew significantly. World Book continues to dominate the U.S. direct sales encyclopedia market, and for good reason. Extraordinarily well edited and priced at under 5 cents per page, these books are a bargain for your youngster and adult alike. You may find one editing technique interesting. World Book ranks over 44,000 words by difficulty. Longer entries in the encyclopedia include only the most easily comprehended words in the opening section, with the difficulty of the material gradually escalating as the exposition proceeds. As a result, youngsters can easily and profitably read to the point at which subject matter gets too difficult, instead of immediately having to deal with a discussion that mixes up words requiring college-level comprehension with others of fourth-grade level. Selling World Book is a calling. Over one-half of our active salespeople are teachers or former teachers, and another 5% have had experience as librarians. They correctly think of themselves as educators, and they do a terrific job. If you don't have a World Book set in your house, I recommend one. Kirby likewise recorded its fourth straight year of units volumes gain. Worldwide, units sale grew 4% from 1985 and 33% from 1982. While the Kirby product is more expensive than most cleaners, it performs in a manner that leaves cheaper units far behind, in the dust, so to speak. Many 30 and 40-year-old Kirby cleaners are still in active duty. If you want the best, you buy a Kirby. Some companies that historically have had a great success in direct sales have stumbled in recent years. Certainly the era of working woman has created new challenges for direct sales organizations. So far, the record shows that both Kirby and World Book have responded most successfully. The business described above, along with the insurance operations and feature constitute our major business units. The brevity of our description is in no way meant to diminish the importance of these businesses to us. All have been discussed in past annual reports, and because of the tendency of Berkshire owners to stay in the fold, about 98% of the stock at the end of each year is owned by people who were owners at the start of the year. We want to avoid undue repetition of basic facts. You can be sure that we will immediately report to you in detail if you underlying economics or competitive positions of any of these businesses should materially change. In general, the businesses described in this section can be characterized as having very strong market positions, very high returns on capital employed, and the best of operating management. The Feature Bros Co. Every year in Berkshire's annual report, I include a description of the kind of business that we would like to buy. This quote-unquote ad paid off in 1986. On January 15th of last year, I received a letter from Bob Heldman of Cincinnati, a shareholder for many years and also chairman of Fisherman Bros. Until I read the letter, however, I did not know of either Bob or Fisherman. Bob wrote that he ran a company that met our tests and suggested that we get together, which we did in Omaha after the results for 1985 were compiled. He filled me in on a little history. Fisherman, a uniform manufacturing and distribution business, began operating in 1842. Warren Heldman, Bob's father, became involved in the business in 1941, and his son, Bob and George, now president, along with their sons, subsequently joined the company. Under the Heldman's management, the business was highly successful. Excuse me. In 1981, Feature was sold to a group of venture capitalists and a leveraged buyout, an LBO, the management retaining an equity interest. The new company, as is the case with all LBOs, started with an exceptionally high debt-to-equity ratio. After the buyout, however, operations continued to be very successful, so by the start of the last year, debt had been paid down substantially, and the value of the equity had increased dramatically. For a variety of reasons, the venture capitalists wished to sell, and Bob, having dutifully read Berkshire's annual report, thought of us. Feature is exactly the sort of business we like to buy. Its economic record is superb, its managers are talented, high grade, and love what they do. And the Heldman family wanted to continue its financial interests in partnership with us. Therefore, we quickly purchased about 84% of the stock for a price that was based upon a $55 million valuation for the entire business. The circumstances of this acquisitions were similar to those prevailing in our purchase of Nebraska Furniture Mart. Most of the shares were held by people who wished to employ funds elsewhere. Family members who enjoyed running their business wanted to continue both as owners and managers. Several generations of the family were active in the business, providing management for as far as the eye can see, and the managing family wanted a purchaser who would not resell regardless of price, and who would let the business be run in the future as it had been in the past. Both Feature and NFM were right for us, and we were right for them. You may be amused to know that neither Charlie nor I have been in Cincinnati, headquarters for Feature, to see their operations, and, incidentally, it works both ways. Chuck Huggins, who had been running Seas for 15 years, has never been to Omaha. If our success were to depend upon insights we developed through plant inspections, Berkshire would be in big trouble. Rather, in considering an acquisition, we attempted to evaluate the economic characteristics of the business, its competitive strengths and weaknesses, and the quality of the people we will be joining. Berkshire was a standout in both respects. In addition to Bob and George Heldman, who are in their mid-60s, spring chickens by our standards. There are 3 members of the next generation, Gary, Roger, and Fred, to ensure continuity. As a prototype for acquisitions, Berkshire has only one drawback: size. We hope our next acquisition is at least several times as large, but a carbon copy in all other respects. Our threshold for minimum annual after-tax earnings of potential acquisition has been moved up to 10 million from the 5 million level that prevailed when Bob wrote to me. Flushed with success, we repeat our ad. If you have a business that fits, call me, or preferably write. Here's what we're looking for. 1. Large purchases. 2. Demonstrated consistent earning power. 3. Business earnings, good returns on equity while employing little or no debt. 4. Management in place. 5. Simple businesses. 6. An offering price. We will not engage in unfriendly takeovers. We can promise complete confidentiality and a very fast answer, customarily with 5 minutes, as to whether we are interested. We prefer to buy for cash, but will consider issuing stock when we receive as much in intrinsic business value as we give. Indeed, following recent advice in this price of Berkshire stock, transitions involving stock issuance may be quite feasible. We invite potential sellers to check us out by contacting people with whom we had done business in the past. For the right business and the right people, we can provide a good home. On the other hand, we frequently get approached about acquisitions that don't come close to meeting our tests. New ventures, turnarounds, action-like sales, and the ever-popular among brokers, I'm sure something will work out if you people get to know each other. None of these attract us in the least. Besides being interested in the purchase of entire businesses, as described above, we are also interested in the negotiated purchase of large, but not controlling blocks of stock, as in our cap sites purchase. Such purchase appeals to us only when we are very comfortable with both the economics of the business and the ability and integrity of the people running the operation. We prefer large transactions. In the usual case, we might do something as small as 50 million or even smaller, but our preference is for commitments many times that size. Insurance operations. We present our usual table of industry figures, expand this year to include data about incurred losses and the GNP inflation index. The contrast in 1986 between the growth in premiums and growth in incurred losses will show you why underwriting results for the year improved materially. And then it has yearly change in premiums. We've gone over this before, so it has 81, 82, 83, 84, 85. And 86. We'll go over 86 because we haven't done that yet. But the yearly change in premiums written is 22.6. Statutory combined ratio after policyholder dividends is 108.5. Yearly change in incurred losses 15.5. Inflation rate measured by GNP deflator is 2.6, and that's new, so I'll say that for 85 is 3.3, for 84 is 3.8, for 83 was 3.9, for 82 is 6.4, and for 81 it was 9.2. And it looks like over the years, like the last few years, it's been 110 something, and they finally come down underneath 110. Anything over 100 though is negative, in case you guys have forgotten. Source: Best Insurance Management Reports. The combined ratio represented total insurance cost, loss incurred plus expenses, compared to revenue from premiums. A ratio below 100 indicates an underwriting profit, and one above 100 indicates a loss. When the investing income that an insurer earns from holdings to the policyholder's funds, the float, is taken into account, a combined ratio of the 107 to 112 range typically produces an overall break-even result, exclusive of earnings of the funds provided by shareholders. The math of the insurance business encapsulated by the table is not very complicated. In years when the industry's annual gain in revenues, premiums, pokes along at 4% or 5%, underwriting losses are sure to amount. This is not because auto accidents, fires, windstorms, and the like are occurring more frequently, nor has it lately been the fault of general inflation. Today, social and judicial inflations are the major culprits. The cost of entering a courtroom has simply ballooned. Part of the jump in cost arises from skyrocketing verdicts, and part of the tendency of the judge and juries to expand the coverage of insurance policies beyond that contemplated by the insurer when the policies were written. Seeing no let up in either trend, we continue to believe that the industry's revenues must grow at close to 10% annually for it to just hold its own in terms of profitability, even though general inflation may be running only 2% to 4%. In 1986, as noted, the industry premium volume soared even faster than lost costs. Consequently, the underwriting loss of the industry fell dramatically. In last year's report, we predicted this sharp improvement, but also predicted that prosperity would be fleeting. Alas, the second prediction is already proving accurate. The rate of gain in the industry's premium volume has slowed significantly from an estimated 27.1% in 1986 first quarter to 23.5% in the second, to 21.8% in the third, to 18.7% in the fourth, and we expect further slowing in 1987. Indeed, the rate of gain may well fall below 10% equilibrium figure of the third quarter. Nevertheless, underwriting results in 1987, assuming they are not dragged down by a major natural catastrophe, will gain improved material because price increases are recognized in revenues on a lagged basis. In effect, the good news in earnings follows the good news in prices by 6 to 12 months. But the improving trend in earnings will probably end by late 1988 or early 1989. Thereafter, the industry is likely to head south in the hurry. Pricing behavior in the insurance industry continue to be exactly what can be expected in a commodity-type business. Only under shortage conditions are high profits achieved, and such conditions don't last long. When the profit sun begins to shine, long-established insurers shower investors with new shares in order to build capital. In addition, newly formed insurers rush to sell the shares at the advantageous price available in the new issue market. Prices advantageously, that is, to the insider promoting the company, but rarely to the new shareholders. These moves guarantee future trouble. Capacity soars, competitive juices flow, and prices fade. It's interesting to observe insurance leaders beseech their colleagues to behave in a more statesmanlike manner when pricing policies. Why, they ask, can't we learn from history, even out the peaks and valleys, and consistently price to make reasonable profits? What they wish, of course, is pricing that resembles, say, that of the Wall Street Journal, whose prices are able to start with and rise consistently each year. Such calls for improved behavior have all of the effects of those made by Nebraska corn growers asking how his fellow growers worldwide to market their corn with more statesmanship. What's needed is not more statesmen, but less corn. By raising large amounts of capacity in the last 2 years, the insurance industry has, to continue our metaphor, vastly expand its plantings of corn. The resulting increase in crop, i.e. the proliferation of insurance capacity, will have the same effect on prices and profits the surplus crops have had since time immemorial. Okay, we're going to pause there, and we'll come back for number 2 tomorrow. If you find this on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon down below so that way you know every single time when I post. And leave a comment down below. Do you guys like his little metaphors that he puts? Does that make things clearer for you guys at all? Just curious. And until tomorrow for number 2. Bye.